This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, Aaron asks us about our upcoming summer of Sillies.
Woo! It's a little weird and a little strange when you make your home out on. This is a podcast, and this is what a Joey sounds like.
We run, we jump, we swim and play. We row and go on ships, do. But the thing that
Lasts forever
are our dear friendship. Now we're just going to leave you on that unresolved chord and use music theory to ruin you.
Yeah.
But please.
No problem. And this is what an executive producer and camp counselor, Jess Vander, sounds like.
Hi, this is Jess.
I'm sorry. Admittedly, I get it. Like there's moments when we over geriatric millennial, like where it really is like, boom. And it's like, it's just a helpful reminder every time we get a, hi, this is Jess. Just to be yep. We're in our little bubble again, just the two of us.
Yippee-ki-yay!
But it seemed fun and nice. I liked it. I liked it, even though I didn't understand any of it.
Like the cowboys say,
sing it again now.
Yippee-ki-yay!
Get along, little doggies.
Till the break of day.
Ding, ding. You gotta watch out for those.
All right, reel it in, gentlemen.
Man-eating jackrabbits and those killer cacti.
Sorry.
Hey, dude. We had to finish it.
We had to finish it.
We're incapable of letting it hang. We ruin ourselves. Aaron, you have questions for us, which I feel like we've primed with this, no?
We have. Okay. So I, as many of you have been deluged with movie trailers lately. And I found myself getting really, really obsessed with Scary Movie 3. And I've got a lot of feelings about it. Or no, is it Scary Movie 3 or is it Scary Movie 7? I think it's Scary Movie 3.
I was like, I think it's past 3.
Maybe it's past 3. The new Scary Movie. We'll do that one. So watching the trailer for that one, if you don't know, Scary Movie was a series franchise by the Wayans brothers that was spoofing the Scream series and slashers in general and a whole bunch of other crap.
Scary Movie 6.
There we go. I love that my numbers are that off. It's like Scary Movie 2, maybe? I don't know. Second one? No, yeah, 6. So it's a new it's a franchise that has been dormant for a really long time. And it's really interesting that it's coming back right now. So I'm like, the first ones that are actually produced by the Wayans brothers are hilarious. They're so funny. They're quotable. And they're definitely like 90s crude humor. There's a lot of stuff that just you would think wouldn't fly now.
I was thinking about Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood this morning while I was riding my bike. A Wayans brothers classic.
I also love that for those who don't know what the name of the movie is, that just sounded like maybe a whole movie title or a series of individual actions.
Yeah,
I was getting this morning to ride my bike. It's kind of amazing. And I go down a rabbit hole. I'm like looking up different interviews with the Wayans brothers and stuff like that. But long story short, I then start seeing trailers for a new Jackass movie and a new Super Troopers movie and Stop That Train, which is a drag queen spoof movie of 70s like airplane disaster movies, like also featuring Charo. And then I think the icing on the cake was last week when it was announced that Coyote versus Acme, which has been it was the shelved, killed Warner Brothers Wile E. Coyote live action movie with my dude Will Forte. It's a very, very it's silly, and it looks like it has the potential to be very good. and there's a lot of controversy around it because Warner Brothers shelved it just for the tax write-off. And so now a different production company has gotten the distribution rights, is releasing it, and is using the marketing campaign to kind of shit on Warner Brothers and saying like, you guys are Acme. You guys are this horrible megacorp that is just doing terrible things. It's a very clever campaign.
Meta.
So very meta. And I gave you the longest intro ever. I always try to keep my intros short, and I failed today. This made me really excited because I think that we're about to run headlong into a summer of silliness. And I am so here for the silly billies. And so I wanted to ask y'all, what are you looking forward to during the new summer of silliness?
Where my Billy's at.
Where my Billy's at? It's also a drag race thing.
Silly Billy. Why I'm doing like a 702 remake of Silly Billies. Put one hand up. Can you repeat that? Warner Brothers is bad.
It's literally karaoke with Aaron and Joey.
Yeah. I'm like so excited because I was actually like thinking I didn't know that like slew of movies was coming, so I'm super excited. But I like going to the movies. I probably go to the theater 12 to 15 times a year. Like there's a good one near us. It serves food, so you can have like dinner, go with like
Nighthawk?
or lunch or something. Yeah,
Is it
Nighthawk.
Nighthawk?
And so
Yeah, go there if you live in New York.
yeah, and so I'm like, but I wanted to go to the movies recently with the family, and I was like, everything is so serious and everything is like all dramas and stuff, and that's not my zone. So this is super. I'm you know what I'm excited for, Aaron? That is like bordering in the silly camp because of how it's talking to the fan base is actually the Street Fighter movie.
Yes. I should have included that. That's also hype silly. Like, that's massively silly, and I'm super excited for it.
But it's like it's like taking it seriously of being a movie. It's not like the jokes and the silliness are sort of like with the fan base and with the audience, as opposed to like at them or diminishing that the fandom in that world exists. And I'm not even in that, but I saw the trailer and with Emerson, and she's like, "Can we go to that?" And I'm like, "Yes, we can go to that."
Yes, and like the director of that is from the Eric Andre show, and so I think that that's where there's this like, it's this perfect tension, which gets brought up in humor all the time. Is like, what makes things funny is treating it like it is dead serious. Like that's kind of like a rule, is like if you have to commit fully that this ridiculous, that's why Curb Your Enthusiasm works. That's why The Comeback works. That's why like any of these things work. And I am just like super excited to see. I'm super excited for how that plays out. I also like you just like sparked a thing for me that I hadn't really thought about, which is there's definitely there's a lot of contextual things that sort of make sense to why this whole silly movie thing would be happening. And you've got, and if I'm just playing this out, you've got superhero fatigue. And if you don't believe us, please go back and listen to our prognogs, because I'm telling you, Avengers Doomsday is going to crash and burn. I'm going to keep bringing that one up until it comes to be. So there's superhero fatigue, and our screens have been taken over by them. Horror is the other thing that has like, it's kind of the genre that gets the most creative license these days, where there's the most original IP and original ideas that are being explored through horror films. But like horror is a very specific way of engaging with, content. You've got a huge proliferation of family films, and they're all kind of on that bubble of like trying to appeal to kids and appeal to parents at the same time. But there's just a big gap for like funny stuff only for adults. Now, so you've got that whole thing. And then of course you've got the midterms, and you've got the existential dread that we are all living in day to day. And so this idea, and you've got the other thing, which I think cannot go without mention for some of these movies, like Jackass, Super Troopers, and even Scary Movie, is that there is a thread or a strain of like un-PC-ness to the humor and in which franchises are coming back. And that I do believe, to me, that's cause for pause, because I think that, like, you know, it gets into the whole thought of like, we're just gonna have, I believe that in addition to the silliness, we're gonna have a lot of conversations about like, it's not okay to say that, and like that is offensive, and that's like wrong, and it's going to get right back into this like dumb loop of like, well, we should be able to say whatever we want to say because it's just funny and who cares, and like, yeah, but you're like demeaning real people and their lived experiences, so fuck you, and I don't get to make movies, so lame. So that whole thing, expecting that. But anyway, all those different pieces coming together, there's a huge room to bring in the sillies and let us silly.
I think I'm interestingly cautiously optimistic to that last point, because I've seen a handful of things recently where, right, like you always go through the pendulum swing of like tightening language and loosening language and tightening language, and some of the things that I have seen that make me excited are like, I've seen trans people talking about like, Dave Chappelle, your jokes were bad, but here's someone telling a trans joke that is really funny, and like learn your lesson, like in terms of it's not about you can or can't, it's like there are good jokes and there are bad jokes, and how do you tell these things without sort of attacking someone or doing, and so I'm sort of like interested to see, like you're saying, of like, is there, you know, have we learned the lessons of the past and evolving the way in which we're telling jokes where it's not at the expense of somebody, but you can say something absurd or like, you know, un-PC is how you talked about it in a way that is like not punching down, is not belittling, but is like, oh, that makes me uncomfortable because it is like a subject, right? Like I saw a thing, a Norm Macdonald talking about Sam Kinison, who was like a famous comedian that like yelled and screamed on stage, but he told him, he's like, you can either take a thing that everyone thinks is funny and treat it so seriously that then that becomes funny because it's absurd, or you can take something that everyone thinks is so serious and then treat that as absurd, as like, he's like, there's two angles to a joke. You either make a silly thing super serious, or you make a super serious thing silly. And I'm like, even that sort of, instead of being edgelords about comedy, like going more into like theory and practice about how you can like be silly, have fun, tell jokes that doesn't have to take something from somebody in the process. That, you know, maybe I'm just being me and being like hopelessly optimistic about these things, but I've just seen a handful of things recently where I'm like, oh, like, could nature be healing? You know, like,
what I do think can happen is that, I guess, when a lot of these things, so many thoughts, Joey, you just sparked like 8 different thoughts, and I'm trying to get them all out. One of them that I thought was really interesting is, you remind me that like we are in a moment where there's plenty of dialogue, like it's all about the discourse. And so whether the joke is made or not, there is going to be a response and a discussion about it that is enlightening, that does leave room to move things forward. And that's actually a benefit to, like, when compared to a lot of when the last installments of these franchises were coming out and the types of humor that many of them tended to like stand behind. And then that also brought up the interesting point that like a lot of these are existing franchises that are extending for one more chapter. There are only a few examples of something that's like fully novel. And I think that that's also kind of telling. There's so much that you know, as much as much as maybe 10 years ago or 12 years ago, there was a lot of discussion around like, make America great again. Like, when was America great? Like, it's looking back. I think that you probably have a lot of people right now saying, I wish it were 10 years ago, like it weren't like it is right now, or like, ooh, I can remember when it wasn't this bad. And they're not the people who necessarily were like coding it as going back to the 50s, etc.
Yeah.
So the idea that we're doing a lot of like reboots or additional installments with the original cast members and the original creators, that's the big kind of tweak. Because at least in all of like Scary Movie's case, Jackass's case, and Super Troopers case, it's not only behind that screen's talent or behind the camera talent that's the same, it's people in front of the camera as well. So that's telling. And then the third thing that you mentioned that got my giblets akimbo was that's terrible. That is I've said a lot of horrible things. This is pretty up there.
Giblets.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Alex left the call. He's like, no, you lost me at giblets akimbo.
Alex Contel, our producer, literally left. He literally, thank you. He literally left. The third thing is that, like, I don't think it can be ignored that internet culture itself has rewarded edgelords and created a sort of bond between comedians and edgelords. The idea that no one should police my language, the idea that like it's actually more draconian to not say things than to say things, and that the whole job of humor is to find the line, like, and so it is a dangerous job, but a necessary job to constantly be dancing around that line so that you know where it's moving, because that's where the sort of surprise and insight comes from humor, and you will mess up. And I do think that there's a muddy thing of like people who don't get that, what you just said, which is like, maybe you should be learning how to tell the joke better. And I'll post it in the show notes. You might have been talking about this video. When the trailer for Scary Movie 6 came out, there's just a very lazy pronouns joke that is in the trailer. And there was a really great breakdown of like, Wayans brothers, y'all are literally a dynasty of humor. You guys are brilliant comedians. This joke is not offensive to us. It's lazy. Like, here are 8 other versions of this joke that would have been funny. Why did you let this bad version into the trailer, like into the cut? And whether, like, who knows whether or not that's going to be a thing in the movie, like becomes like a theme of the movie or like a character trait or whatever. But like, lazy. It's also 2026. We're doing just like they them jokes. Are we for real? And we think that's also funny?
Like Marlon Wayans is like an incredible ally from everything that I've seen. I mean, he's like out there like fighting for like the trans community and like supporting. It's either his daughter or his
he has
niece,
a trans child.
Yeah. And so that even that like further emphasizes like that's just a lazy joke. Like you're on our side and that's shitty. You can do better. Like.
Yeah. And this is where I think there is like perhaps another element that like we maybe are a little bit more wise to now than we would have been 20 years ago, which is that the creators of the film, the studio who distributes the film, and the audience that consumes the film are 3 very different constituencies. And so the creators are going to create and edit the piece of work. The studio is going to determine how it's marketed. In most cases, the creators and the production team are not involved in the marketing. So, and also a lot of the marketing team has to take, in order to get things out and build hype sometimes, like cutting room floor material. And it's like, it's not a finished product. Like the film team is actually sending them just like, here's a bunch of cuts, cut something together. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because, to your point, or maybe not to your point, but you point out that Sean, Marlon, and the rest of the Wayans family that's involved with this may not actually have been involved with approving that joke and approving that trailer. They did kind of defend it, which is not great. There's a whole thing. But there's that. And then there is also the fact that, like, the audience and who the audience will actually get up and see the film, that's where it's interesting you bring up Chappelle, and that's where I go back to this, where when Chappelle walked away from the Chappelle show, it's that the people that were laughing at his jokes made him really uncomfortable. That's why he walked away from the Chappelle show. He was making jokes that he thought he had an in crowd that was understanding the wryness of them, but then he saw people that he deemed were laughing at him and were laughing at the Black experience. Which, by the way, I'm just going to go on record. I have not forgiven Dave Chappelle. I'm saying nice things about him because I can hold two things, just like Joey said, I can hold two things at once. Brilliant storyteller and insightful person, odious when it comes to his relationship to queer people, and really indefensible and crude and gross and lazy when it comes to that. Lazy is very loaded, so I will take, I don't like that. Anyway, long story short, I think that, like, the need and the opportunity for silliness does not have to come at the expense of harm. And I think that that is, like, what I'm really looking forward to. And that's why I'm definitely going to be seated, suited, and booted for Coyote versus Acme and for Stop That Train. Because you got Rachel Bloom, my girl from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, back up in a... Rachel Bloom is brilliant and hilarious. And if you've never watched Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, my God, do yourself a favor and watch it from beginning to end. That show is hilarious, so well written, like, joke a minute. The joke density is great. Bring that into your silliness this summer.
There's something in what you said, Aaron, and I feel like, Jess, you've been sort of deep in, like, studying comedy recently for work, and I'm curious because, like, there's some part of it that I'm wondering about is, like, comedy, both as films, as TV shows, as stand-up, whatever, doesn't get recognized, I think, and this isn't like a novel take, as, like, serious art, and almost inherently, right, because, like, you're trying to be silly, right? Like, you can't make true art because it's silly. And I sometimes wonder about, like, that dynamic of it, of, like, it's not recognized. Like, you could put just as much intention and effort and care and, like, craft into making a comedy film as a drama, but it will never really be perceived that way.
Yeah, I mean, this just came out of our research that's, like, hot off the presses, which is you might think and assume that a horror movie makes people scared, and that, like, comforting, fun shows make people feel comforted and fun. But actually, like, what the intent or even the input is mismatched for different types of people for what they get out of it. And so that means that, like, you know, there's in our sort of fractured and nicheified comedy landscape, you're just gonna have, like, the same thing could be received completely differently by different people and do different things for them. And so, I mean, that's what's that may be interesting and exciting about playing around with more silly is, like, you know, maybe for some that could actually be provocative, and for others it's like, this is a great laugh. In fact, that's probably, like, a lot of Jordan Peele's work in the last several years, I feel like, has fit into that bubble of, like, you know, some theaters, like, burst out laughing, and for other people being like, this is a terrifying horror film, and, like, that's really cool that all can coexist at this unique time in comedy.
That you remind me of a lot of the conversation that was coming up around Final Destination Bloodlines last year, and, like, it's so many people view the Final Destination movies at this point as comedies because it's just so absurd, and you're just sitting there waiting for how is the Rube Goldberg machine gonna unravel, and audiences laugh. Like it is tickling a humor response, not necessarily a dread response, like as much. And there are a bunch of other ones too that like I don't want to spoil any movies, so I'm not going to bring up specific names, but there are a few other horror movies as a non-horror person that I have delighted in because they were hilarious. Like I laughed and then I stayed awake for a week. So
Well, Jess, can you bring us to our silly summer shout out the Billy's Corner?
Yeah, it turns out I had no idea what movies were coming this summer, but I'm very excited about selfishly, this is a fairly productive education for me about all the things to get excited about. I'm ready to laugh.
yay! That's
Where my
it.
belly's at.
Where
From
my
the
belly's
front
at?
to back.
Where you feeling that? Throw one hoof up. Can you repeat that?
Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by Bat. Bat. I'm not a goat. .com. Get your
So
new.
much better at this than I am. So sorry, you're not.
I'm not a goat.com. We'd like to thank our executive producer, also not a goat, Jess Vander.
We also want to thank sound engineer and he's so gruff, Alex Contel.
We'd like to thank our programming coordinator and the silliest of the Billies, Les Jacobs.
And the production crew, which is the Chickle to My Chuckle, Sarah Gilbert, Nora Mestridge, Christy Jensen, Amanda Medina, and Amy Waters. Thank you all.
As always, thanks, Elen. Special thanks, Cinema.
Yeah. Like I might actually, I want to get on your level, Joey. Like I live in LA and I've had some really fantastic cinema experiences in the past year. And like, I just need to get back up to the Burbank AMC this summer and just like post up for some Stop That Train madness. Like I'm here for Spider-Man Brand New Day as well. I'll watch anything Tom Holland's in. I'm not mad about it.
Yep.
Not embarrassed about it. It's what it is.
And last special thanks to 702.
Can you repeat that?
The area code.
Hold on, let me put one hand up.
That was worth. Look up the lyrics, people. Look up the lyrics.
Well, love you, mean it. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.